When I just go to events and I'm like, well, my name is Hua, and they're like, what is it? And I'm like, HOA, like Homeowners Association. So people will remember my name. They're like, oh, I can remember that. It's Hua Nguyen. But I've met some amazing people, through just being open. And as I'm attending more events and the circles keep opening, and I like to just surround myself with just positive people who are wanting to make impact. And that really draws me to those people. And it's different spheres, and I've met people from all walks of life who are just making positive impact, and they are so humble and so heart-driven. And it's been an absolute blessing. And one of the biggest things I had to overcome in order to open myself to even meet these people is to open my mind. The more educated we are, the more we think we know. And the more we close our minds, and sometimes we don't allow, it's like, I already know it. So once I put that down and I finally started peeling the layers and opening myself up, and the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. Well, there's so much more out there. We're all professionals and business owners here, very educated. But it's a very different type of training as doctors that we go through. And formal education is really different than, self-education. So how many of you went to college and took the course on financial literacy and diversified passive income and asset protection and wealth management? Who took that course? I was like, I wish I took that course. I wish someone taught me that earlier when I was younger. There was not a thing, right? But I want to give you a little bit of my background. So my family also, like Dr. Le Tran, left Vietnam after the war. And, I was born in the Philippines, in Manila, in the refugee camp. So it's my mom, my dad, my two older brothers. I'm the baby of the house. And so we moved around a lot. I didn't come to the United States until after the age of 8. And so they left their country and left everything. And when we talk about coming here with absolute bare bones, nothing, they were janitors here in the U.S. And my mom was never allowed to go to school because she was a woman. And she was the eldest of 6 kids, and she had to take care of all her siblings. So no formal education. So we moved around. I was in 13 different schools by the time that I landed in New Orleans, and I was in the 5th grade. And so English is my 3rd language. And so I've overcome a lot of different hardships, and it wasn't just financial hardships. It was a lot of bullying. I know that's come up. I've gone through that a lot of discrimination. But, it was determination and just seeing that my parents leaving, coming here for the American dream, and they weren't living the American dream at the time. We grew up in a $3,000 old trailer. And at the time, I was really embarrassed with my friends to show them, I lived in this old trailer. And I was really shy. I was super introverted and so timid. But I was really good in academia. And I said, my mom didn't have a chance to go to school, and I'm here in America, and they came here so that I could have this opportunity. I am going to maximize all my resources, and I'm going to make it happen here in the States. And I want them to know that their sacrifice to bring us here for freedom wasn't out of vain. And so that was my mission. My dad passed away when I was 13 years old. And so it was just my mom, raising us. And I became a very young entrepreneur by the age of 10. And so I was selling anything you can sell. And I could talk and I can sell at least. I learned how to do that with my mom. And even though she didn't have a formal education, she wound up having 6 businesses in New Orleans. And I went to school and worked with her. So my mom and I were like partners. And we built our way up. Little convenience store in the hood is where we started. So I knew, but we were really good with people. And I found that my mom, even though she didn't have formal education, she had excellent people skills. and she had really good connection and rapport, and people would help her. And so we really got to know the people in the community. We were in this old, very, crime-driven part of New Orleans, and that's where I grew up. So I saw all sorts of things growing up. But we became friends with those people who then became, like, they looked out for us. And we would feed them, and we would take care of them, and they would make sure they took care of us. And that they knew it was just my mom at the store, and we would be there till 11 o'clock at night, and we would walk home because we didn't have a car. But they always protected us in that community. And we started growing and things like that. So I never forget where I come from, And so I went to school. I became, valedictorian of my class. I was able to get to Tulane University, get a full scholarship. And, so I did everything kind of like, okay, you got to go to school, got to make the grades. So I excelled. I was like one of those really hard overachievers. I was like, okay, I'm going to make this happen because my goal is to retire my mom. Because she's working 7 days a week, 14, 16-hour work days. And my mission was I just want to retire my mom. She's worked hard all her life. And I just want to be able to do something back for her and take care of her. And, so I went to optometry school. And, my husband, if anybody doesn't know, I refer to him as my lover. And we just had our past anniversary last weekend. He's here with my daughter, hanging out right now. But, he's been he's my business partner, he's my life partner, and he's made me become a better person. We help each other, and that's really important, having this relationship with him. But we have the same vision in life. He came from humble beginnings, very much so, just like us. We share exactly the same, similar story. So we have this insatiable hunger to want to make a difference, to make it. And we want to help other people, and we want to show people that it's possible. And we had this early, and people thought we were crazy when we had these big dreams. And we would tell people, and they're like, sure. And I was like, that's okay. I'm going to keep sharing my vision because it's going to happen. And you have to have that visualization, and you have to have that insatiable drive and commitment and keep showing up. And so we had that. And we met in optometry school, and he was my lab partner. And we did eye injections. And that's how we got to know each other and got a little closer. But we graduated, and, we talk about this American dream. And I was like, yeah. But we came out of school combined, we had over $300,000 of student loan debt. And I was like, and I know that's part of the journey. I was like, man, our goal is to be our own practice owners. That's always that vision. I was like, I want to be my own boss, and I want to have my own private practice. And so that's what we did. We graduated, and I worked for, we both worked for someone else first, full time, but then we kept picking up relief work. Anybody who needed extra days, we picked it up. I worked 7 days a week, and so did my husband. And we did that for 4.5 years. We would occasionally take a day off because the goal was to have enough to purchase our own practice. And so we did that after 4.5 years. And then, we bought 2 very prominent practices in DFW. But we didn't know anything about running practice management and optometry, to own a practice. No one really teaches you that in school. We're excellent doctors and clinicians, but nobody really teaches you how to properly build teams and efficient systems and things like that. That's something we had to learn on our own. But this year, we celebrate 10-year anniversary of our practices, And it was a lot of learning that we did on our own. But our teams, we invest in people and meaningful relationships. And I think the biggest driver to our success has been because we deeply value those meaningful relationships, and it's not superficial. And when we built our team, we started our practice, it was 3 team members, and they're like our family. They are our family. And we train them, and it's from the culture. It's always the leadership culture starts from the top down. And so when we really treat them like family, yes, you compensate them well and create win-win situations, but when you really recognize their work and show their appreciation, and we do monthly meetings and we grow together, so we benchmark everything. But we take them on annual trips. I take my team on an international annual trip every year. And we go to all different places around the world because it's about creating experiences. And this is how we've kept the same team members from 10 years ago. And we've gone from 3 staff members to now 15 staff members. And I've grown one of my practice. We have 2, but just the one, the very first one, we were started off, it was $500,000 of revenue. And we've grown that over $3.5 million now. And it's one exam lane, one doctor, 30 minutes apart. So the average optometrist usually will see more than, they usually see at least 3 to 4 patients an hour. And they usually, have multiple doctors. And so the type of revenue that we generate is usually multiple doctors, especially for optometry. And so it's a different model. It's not about quantity. It's the quality and the type of patients and the type of services that we provide that's really is totally different than the typical optometrist. And so we've built that, and even that was without marketing. But that was really because of the relationships we were able to build with our team. Now we've transitioned, and I'll talk a little bit about my journey into why I transitioned into real estate and how that happened and why that even happened. But that model of building a practice and having a mission, a clear vision, distinct roles for the team is so important, because when we're not there, the patients, every touch point, a patient and the experience you create for that patient is what will help you grow. And so that model we transitioned, and the reason we decided to even go into real estate is, we have 2 very successful practices, and my husband's like, let's just keep building more. Let's have more practices. And I said, no, because I want to diversify. I want to be, it was always like it's like trading time for money. And I was like, I don't want to just trade. I love what I do. I love patient care. That's why we went into doing this, is to serve patients. But I want to have the flexibility and have choices. I want to have true freedom. And I want to have this financial freedom people talk about, and time freedom. So if I wanted to travel the world and leave for 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months at a time, if I wanted to do that, I want to be able to do that. And at that time, I wasn't able to do that. And when my daughter was born, I was with my husband. Now it's been 16 years, but it took us 9 years before I was able to have my daughter. It was a very challenging for me to have. I thought we couldn't have kids. So for us to be able to have Athena, and that really changed my trajectory of what was really important to me at that time. And I wanted to spend more quality time with her. And I didn't want her to have second best of me when I was practicing full time, coming home after a long day, after 9-10 hours at the office, and then coming home, and she gets the second best of me. And I wanted to be there for all her milestones. And so that shifted my pivot. I was like, well, what else can we get into? And how do we do this? And so I knew always that real estate was a vehicle. We studied it a lot. We learned a lot about things, but we didn't actually engage in it, and I didn't know how to get started. And so when we started pivoting into real estate, we actually started with all sorts of type of real estate. And we hired different mentors, we joined different groups, listened to a bunch of different podcasts, read tons and tons of books. But we started single family, and then we bought raw land, and then we did Airbnb, and then we did hotel. And then eventually we went into apartment investing in a model we call syndication. Who in here knows what a syndication is? Have you heard of a syndication? Yeah. So syndication essentially means that a group of investors are pooling money together to purchase a larger property. Whereas before, we were always looking at smaller things like, okay, I'm going to go look at a 12-unit or 8-unit and things like that. But the difference is when you're doing that it's like you're picking up another job when you're doing that, right? It's like you're the landlord. And you don't know, it's like you risk a lot. you can win it, but it's like, okay, if you flip it or you want to rent it out Airbnb or whether it's long-term rentals, there's a lot of work that still involves you. And when I started in the world of syndication, I started off passively investing. And I was part of this mentorship group where I met a lot of people who were doing this successfully for a very long time, and they had a very good track record. And they were buying apartments, and the model of a syndication is to buy an apartment community that has potential for you to add value. And adding value means there's a potential, say the market rent it's below market rent because a lot of the units have not been updated to upgraded classic, so say for instance it's a 1980s property. The surrounding properties all have nicer units. They have upgrades, they have granite, nice countertops, nice flooring. So if there's an opportunity where as a long-term owner where they really haven't touched and done anything, you can go in and really renovate and do these interior renovations, exterior, add fresh paint, the amenity areas. You can decrease the expenses with water conservation. And so you really raise what we call the NOI, the net operating income. And the way an apartment is evaluated is really different than how a residential home is evaluated. So if I'm buying a home and I go in and I do all the bells and whistles and upgrade it really nice, and I try to sell it, but all my homes around the other neighborhood are priced a certain way, I really can't get a whole lot more than the surrounding comps. Now, an apartment community is valued very differently. So if you're going in, it's based off strictly the NOI, the net operating income. So if there's a business model where you can come in and bring better management, you can do the interior, exterior rehab, you can cut down the expenses and really drive up that profit margin, your valued property is going to be valued a lot more. So the typical hold of these models are 3 to 5 years, and a passive investor will usually get pretty close to double their money or more. And that's been a very effective way of properties. Now, nicer classes might be able to be held longer if it's cash flowing really nice and it's appreciating in value. But that's an avenue of real estate that I wish I would have learned a little bit sooner, because now we do this not passively, but we actually do this very actively, and we grow the portfolio. And I've been able to transition. I've used my real estate income to be able to hire more associate doctors to transition out of my practice, and I just practice really as much or as little as I want. And honestly, I go in twice a month now to see my patients, just for those who request me. But the bulk of our time is really doing multifamily real estate syndications. That's all my husband and I work and focus on. And the model is different in the sense that you come in and you're just like, you're not just coming in and just raising rents. You have to come in with a model where you truly care for the residents, and you're changing workforce housing, but you're doing it with care, and you're training your team and your management to respect these residents and really figure out what is it that the residents can do, whether we can improve on the safety, whether we can improve on giving back. So we partner with a lot of nonprofit organizations for after-school programs for these kids in the community. We do resident appreciation activities throughout the year so the community can get together and know each other. So we're really trying to provide affordable, nice, clean housing in a safe environment. Yes, we all make a profit but we want to create a win-win for the residents where they're well taken care of by our leasing agents, the maintenance crew, where they're taking care of them, and we're fixing things up. We're not a slumlord in these communities. And, our investors are it's a win for them. And of course, the sponsorship team who is putting all the work in it is getting the benefit. But the nice thing about a syndication, it allows passive investors to own real estate without having to do any extra work or any extra time commitment. And so you get cash flow, you get appreciation, tax advantages. So you get all of these things, and you get monthly transparent reporting. and you don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to deal with tenants, toilets, or termites, is what we say it, so it's like, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't have to worry about the eviction. I don't have to worry about what if no one's living in that, or what if the resident doesn't pay on that single family home. You have economies of scale. When we're looking at properties, and we don't buy anything usually less than 150 units. And we have a third-party professional management running this who is well experienced in that asset class in that area. It's not like we're self-managing these properties. So it's a really great way of building wealth and having diversified income, and have your money work for you. So I talk about appreciation, depreciation. So the depreciation in multifamily is very different than depreciation in like single family or hotels or things like that. And we do these cost segregation, accelerated bonus depreciation, and you have to talk to your CPA on that, but there's a lot of tax advantages on this asset class that a lot of other classes don't have. And then I'm going to talk about risk adjustment. So of the different asset classes in real estate that we own, this is one of the most resilient asset classes. So when COVID happened, we closed our practice down for 2 months. We continued to keep all our staff on board. We continued to pay them full salary, but we had zero income coming in from our practices, right? And if you don't have diversified income, it's like if you're only dependent on that, it's a little tough, right? Our Airbnb stopped because of COVID, so I was no longer making money off of my Airbnb. Our hotel stopped. We have a hotel syndication in Belize in an island called Ambergris Caye, and all of that income stopped. Land just really was an appreciation play. We don't cash flow from our land. But our apartments, because people still need a place to live, right? Always, people still need a place to live. And when we heard about the eviction moratorium, we're like, oh my gosh, people are not going to pay. And we were really scared about that. We're like, well, I don't really know how that's going to impact multifamily. And we own 19 different apartment communities. And, we barely took a hit. We had some, but it was less than a 1.5% hit of a decrease where people, occupancy, where, everything stayed above 95% occupancy, and delinquency was really low because we made sure our staff was really, really good with going out to help the residents fill out the proper paperwork. We had stations set up in the leasing office for them to help them. And anybody who had true hardships and they were willing and able to pay whatever they could pay, small parts, we encouraged that as long as they stayed in communication with us. And that was important that, we wanted to work together as a community where it wasn't just like, well, let's evict them, What can we do to help our residents who truly are in hardship, help them fill out what we can, resources, anything that we could to provide help with them and give them some food during that time or whatever. We did a lot of that in the community, and residents appreciate that. Residents really appreciate if you're going out the extra mile to help them. We gave water to everyone, bottled waters and things like that when things were low. When we had stocks of things during COVID, we provided masks and gloves and sanitation to our residents. So those little things people remember. So we try to do something where, it gives back, and our residents will remember that and want to stay with us and refer other people to come into these communities. The other thing with apartments, appreciation, depreciation, economies of scale. So if we own a lot of single-family homes, it can make a lot of money, but it's harder to really scale just individually, right? And so when you have apartment communities, a team is so critical. We don't do this alone. There's no way Jaime and I do this alone. But we have magnificent teams that we trust and align in vision, and everyone has their strengths for us to pursue and get these properties. And it's very competitive to buy these properties at the right price and for an investment. And to give an example, we won a project 5 minutes from my practice. It was a 179-unit property. And there were about 40 people who were competing against this property. And it was a $46 million deal. And these are big institutional guys. These are big players. And we're the syndication group going against these guys. And the angle that we took, and I was like, well, they don't know who we are. But the angle we took is we leveraged our relationship through the years of the big players in the space who were bigger players than us. And we leveraged all of that relationship, the property management company who's managed this family's portfolio, who owned it for 26 years. We had already a good relationship with them. So having them put a good word in for us, and leveraging all our experience with the people with the mortgage, the lenders. So it's a relationship business. And that's how we were able to launch and win that deal. And so our investors know when we have opportunities like this, where, okay, now we have an opportunity for investors to invest, and normally it's $50,000 to $75,000 to get into these type of investments, but they know that it took a lot of filtering through. It's like finding a needle in a haystack to find these opportunities. Our financial analysts, we might go through 100 different deals and underwriting and market analysis before we find a true one potential. So when we get through these deals and you get an opportunity, our investors, we fill up on these opportunities within probably 48 hours, because it's, and we've built a track record where people trust us, and our teams and our partners have been in the business for over 20 years, and we leverage their operational skills. And, and they've more than 2.5 to 3 times most of the investors' money. There's not been a project that we've lost money. And so it's, there's no guarantee, right? Every asset class and every investment has risk. There is no guarantee. But to have a nice, resilient asset class like this, I can't control the stock market. I don't know that, like with apartments, I know if I go in and I have a strong business plan, and I know I can fix X, Y, and Z and bring the rents to market rent. And I know I've had companies come out and give me quotes on how I can save on electricity, on water conservation, and things like that. I know I have more control. And the management companies and the people and the training, those are it's a tangible asset. And those are things that we can train. So that's why we like this space. But my talk today, just a little bit of history, but our true passion, this is just a vehicle. Real estate, all the diversified income, our practices. It's a vehicle for what we want to do in life. What's our mission? Our purpose is to make an impact. And that's just everyone who shared this stage today. It's the same message. It's we want to make a bigger impact. And it's the power of one. Each and every single one of us can make such a huge impact. And it's the impact of the people and what we leave behind. That's what's going to be remembered. No one's going to remember the money you have, the fame you had. What's truly, it's like I always remember this quote where people are like, you will always remember how someone made you feel, right? And that impact, and I come across so many people, and when they're heart-driven, and I can feel that positive aura energy, that's what impacts me. It doesn't impress upon me if you own 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion. And I've gotten the pleasure to meet people in this sphere where they own assets like that. They're billionaires, and they're in these big spaces. But at the core, I respect them and value them because of their values and what they do to give back. That's what impresses me. Not how many properties you have, not how much $1 million and things you have. It's the impact. And that's what drives us. And I love to have this. The more that we grow, both financially and in time, It allows us to travel the world to create experiences and give back to charities and orphanages and causes that we believe in, right? And I've gotten the pleasure to meet Jackson and Marlon at our last event here at Unsilenced Voices. Yeah, thank you. And it's so many different events and charities, and that I feel like it makes a difference, right? And I used to be scared. I used to think like I don't want to be greedy. Like I have more than I ever dreamed of. And a fear was as I'm growing, I was scared that I was going to lose the balance. And life balance to me is so critical, to have happiness and peace. That's all I want, fulfillment and happiness and peace. And I wanted to have that quality time with my family and to just simply do what I want to do and to make that choice where I don't feel like I wake up and feel like I have to do anything. And so when I say to live an extraordinary life with purpose, it's like I'm passionate. I wake up and I'm so excited because there's so much to do. And there's so much, like, I don't ever want to retire. I get that question all the time. They're like, well, when do you want to retire? I'm like, I've already retired from the things I don't want to do, And that's it. I was like, I'm not going to ever retire. The retirement is the things I don't want to do. Now I focus on the things that are high level and that drive my goal forward. I just focus on the things that I want to do and that give me fulfillment and joy that really leaves an impact, So my mom now is 74. My grandma's 93. And, so it's like, I don't think about it. I was like, I don't know how much more time I have with them. And it's the moments. It's like, how many more moments can I create and how much more experience and happy memories can I create with them? So we take them out to, we travel the world with them and we would do mommy's trips and things like that because I want to create those experiences because that's what I want to remember. It's not the years. I don't know how many more years they'll be here with me. And the same thing with us. I don't know if today will be my last day or not, right? So I have this passion of just like, I wake up and the first thing I do is I practice gratitude and I do this priming that I learned from Tony Robbins. And that really puts things into perspective of like the appreciation of the life that we have and not to just go with the daily grind. I was like, I never want to get jaded. And it doesn't matter what happens in the world. And I don't want to get like, those are things I can't control. The only thing I can control is within me and in my emotions and how I react to things. Like if I let that harden me and jade me, then I've lost that personal touch of why, my why. So I don't want to let things harden me. I don't want to get jaded by things, And so kindness and love, I heard that today. That's my mission. I want to just inspire people that it's possible. That this little girl from the refugee camp who grew up in the hood, can make a big impact and can make it happen just by pure insatiable drive, And I didn't make it here by myself. Tons and tons of people helped me along the way because I invested in those relationships and they gave me an opportunity. And I want to be able to do the same to other people, to give them that opportunity and to just give them hope that this can be done. And so I encourage people who are busy professionals and doctors, and we get so busy in the grind and, achieving so much. But it's like you have to be authentic and true to yourself. No benchmark with anybody else. It's your own journey. 1% progression each day. Am I better today? 1% from yesterday. A little bit at a time. But it's consistency. And, it's just don't lose the heart and the kindness. The best things in life are free. And just love and a smile and, just simple connections like that make huge impact. But learning financial literacy is a great vehicle to have more to be able to give. And so learning about creating wealth strategies and, I wish someone would have taught me that I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was like, wow, that's a totally different perspective, but those are things, and there's no right or wrong way. Everybody can have their own way of building wealth. But I just, knowledge is like, if someone at least would introduce me, or if I was interested, could teach me a little bit more, that would have been great. But that's, one more thing. I don't know how much time I have left. Is Dr. Latra? I'm going to keep talking because I don't know how much time I have left. And I don't have PowerPoint presentation, so I apologize. I'm going on the fly here. But I think one of the biggest things that shifted me was I had a near-death experience. And I think when you have a near-death experience, the little things don't really matter anymore. You stress about all these things, and when I died, my car flipped 5 times, completely smashed when I was driving, and they had to pull me out of the car. And I really thought I had already lost my life. And thank God that I didn't. And I was like, all of this stress that I was putting on myself to overachieve, and, I was like, now I focus on the simplicity of things. And that's it. I was like, I focus on being grateful. I simplify everything I do. And that's it. And I was like, I don't sweat the small stuff. When people are like, well, you're not stressed about this and this and this, I'm like, I can't control it. I can't change it. Why stress about it? That's not what I want to do. I was like, so people are like, you're always traveling. You're always like la and bubbly. I'm like, well, so my laughter is my signature. And I'm like, well, there's so much to be grateful in life. I was like, in everything that goes wrong, I'm pretty sure you can pick something that's positive that's going on. You woke up and you're breathing, right? That's a blessing in itself, right? And so that's how I look at life. And, I just want to be able to, give back and, talk about pushing beyond comfort zone. I have a fear of public speaking. And so when Dr. Latran asked me to come up here, and I'm like, I don't know, Dr. Latran. That's like one of my worst fears. But, I realize it's beyond me and this fear. It's all in your head, right? And I was like, it's a message. It's a story that I want to share with people. And, I want to share with people that this is possible, right? And its mindset is 80% of it. And everything else, like you can hire mentors, you can learn the skill set, you can learn the mechanics. But the mindset and the belief and that insatiable drive that I talk about is really what will make it happen for you. And if you declare it to be so and you visualize it, that it's already happened, I'm telling you, it works. But I want to say a quote, and I want to thank everyone for listening. And I know it's been a long day, but it's been an amazing event. I want to thank Dr. Latran for this event. It's been really great. But I want to end with this quote. Life is a gift, and it offers us the privilege, opportunity, and responsibility to give something back by becoming more. Thank you.